today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. On the heels of a big win over Mary Spencer, Mikaela Mayer is targeting a welterweight title showdown with Lauren Price. Currently, Lauren holds 3 alphabet titles at welter. Mikaela holds 3 alphabet titles at super welter, otherwise known as junior middle. Moments after winning 3 of the 4 major junior middleweight titles on Thursday night with a unanimous decision over Mary Spencer in Montreal, Mayer says her vision is to return to welterweight for an undisputed showdown with Lauren Price. The Welsh southpaw, who holds 3 of the 4 major belts at welter, Mayer, who entered the fight, the WBO welterweight champion, says she might try to reign over 2 different weight classes at the same time, if allowed. 3 of the 4 major sanctioning bodies might let her do that, but there's one that won't, and that is the WBO. The WBO don't allow any of their champions at one weight to reign as a champion in another. Whether she likes it or not, they're gonna make her choose. I've never been in this position, and for a minute I thought I was gonna have to choose, said Mayer. But I may not have to do that. They might give me an opportunity to go down, fight Lauren for undisputed, then come back and defend one of the 3 belts. I'm not the type of fighter who hops around and takes forever to do things. I'll go down, fight Lauren, and come right back up in 6 months and defend these belts. That's the kind of fighter I am. It's not so simple when it comes to the WBO. As stated, they don't allow any of their champions at one weight to reign as a champion in another, and because she holds 2 different versions of the WBO title, she vacates the one at welter, there goes undisputed at welter. We had the fight locked in, she says, the fight with Lauren Price. It was set for July in Vegas, and I think what happened was Boxer negotiated that deal for Lauren Price without her being involved in it, and when they did tell her the deal was made, which was completely made, money was negotiated, and everything she said, hell no, I'm not doing that. I guess that's a prerogative. That was the last date we would have with any of those 2 networks on board, so we didn't have money. The money wasn't there to give us the money that we deserved, so we had to put it on hold. And hopefully now they're settled with their network deal. Hopefully Top Rank will have theirs solidified soon, and we can pull together the money and get what we deserve for that fight. Me and O'Shea Jones have talked about it before, talked about fighting, talked about unifying, said Mayer. For a bit of context, O'Shea Jones of the United States is the only other champion at junior middle alongside Mikaela. She holds the IBF title. Entertaining the possibility that they might fight, Mikaela said, "We said you might as well make money with your friends versus your enemies. So if we have to pull together and fight one day, we're both business women, so we'll make it happen. I want to go down and go undisputed against Lauren. That's a big fight. I think I'd be leaving a lot of money on the table not doing that right away. So we'll go see, but I'll leave that to my team to kind of negotiate." Mayer also says she wouldn't completely close the door on moving up even further and weight, not having to cut any weight to weigh in at 151 this past Wednesday and making the 147-pound limit with similar ease. "This is as high as I need to go," said Mayer. "I didn't cut for this fight at all. I don't even cut for 147, but I'm just kind of crazy like that. If there were an opportunity at 160 that made sense, I wouldn't necessarily say no to that, but I think right now I have plenty of options. Right now, I have to decide where I want to go. Undisputed first. Options are obviously a blessing." Mikaela Mayer says she doesn't want to leave all that money on the table, but what money? Boxer ain't got no money. Boxer doesn't have the same money that they used to. In many ways, neither does Top Rank. The fight with Lauren is really only as big as what's on offer. What can Boxer offer for that fight? What can Top Rank offer for that fight? Right now, undisputed at 154 is on the same scale as undisputed at 147. Right now. Question is, why go down and fight Lauren for her 3 alphabet titles when she can go up and fight you for yours? What she could do, she can go up, fight O'Shea Jones for the IBF title. If she wins, she can then bring that to a Mayer fight. By now it's understood by everybody in the industry that Boxer is not getting on BBC what they were getting on Sky. And without that... Oh, you're gonna go to the UK? Fight Lauren Price in Wales for peanuts on a dollar? I don't think so. One thing is true, Mikaela Mayer is not one for waiting around and waiting for opportunities. She's one for seizing them, creating them. The opportunity to unify at 154 may be more palpable than the opportunity to unify at 147, because O'Shea Jones is right there, and O'Shea is a relatively inexpensive opponent compared to Lauren Price. O'Shea Jones and Mikaela Mayer are bosom buddies. They're good friends, but they've already worked it out amongst themselves that if they need to fight, they will fight. I respect that about them, by the way. You see guys like Shakur Stevenson and Keyshawn Davis saying that they'll never fight because they're great friends. When Mikaela and O'Shea don't let that get in the way, I respect that. At this point, the fight with O'Shea might actually be more doable than the fight with Lauren. Fight with Lauren requires more money. He's got to come from somewhere. Men's light heavyweight news. Zach Parker woke up in disbelief after losing a close decision to Joshua Buatsi yesterday. I can't believe the decision went against me last night, Parker wrote on social media. Pretty much everyone at ringside and online said I won the fight. I thought he won the fight. And won it quite convincingly. I should have that title over my shoulder today and changed my family's life. I saw the fight yesterday, and once again Joshua Buatsi underwhelmed. Looked unimpressive. You know, that's why I picked Callum Smith to beat him 2 fights ago. Oh yeah, I sold my stock in Joshua Buatsi a long time ago. What we saw, Zach Parker was very busy in the beginning of the fight, closing the distance on Joshua Buatsi, putting punches together in the first half. That's why I had him winning those rounds in the beginning of the fight. Activity. In the second half of the fight, it looked like he was moving more, flustering Joshua Buatsi with his movement in the second half of the fight. And it's not really towards the end that it starts to look like Joshua Buatsi is coming on. So that when the judges' scorecards were read and Joshua Buatsi's hand was raised, I was flabbergasted. I was surprised. I thought Zach won it convincingly. Second weekend in a row that the boxing community at large takes issue with the officiating in a Queensbury promotion show. Last weekend, it was with the premature stoppage from Howard Foster. This weekend, it's with the scoring in Buatsi versus Parker. Second weekend in a row, Frankie. Joshua Buatsi continues to underperform, underwhelm, in spite of his decorated amateur background, a Team GB alum, and a former Olympian. A lot was expected of Joshua Buatsi. Going from the amateurs into the pros, I remember years ago, early on, when Joshua Buatsi was an unbeaten fighter, and Anthony Yarde was an unbeaten fighter. A lot of the criticism was actually levied towards Anthony for his quality of competition at that time. People used to take shots at him all the time, and bear in mind, Anthony don't got the amateur background that Joshua Buatsi has. Time has told a very different story and given us a very different evaluation of the both of those fighters, because when Anthony Yarde got the opportunity to box for an alphabet title, he fought for it every single time, even if he came up short, even if he was the underdog, even if the odds makers had him in over his head, he never shied away from a chance to box for an alphabet title, whether it was in Russia, Chelyabinsk, Russia, with Sergey Kovalev, or with Artur Beterbiev, now more recently with David Benavidez. Every single time Anthony's gotten an opportunity to box for a belt, he took it. Whereas Joshua Buatsi, the decorated amateur, the Olympian, you know, he was offered a Dmitry Bivol fight 2 years ago, and he turned it down. That was more like 3 or 4 years ago, actually. Right before he leaves Matchroom for Boxer, for greener pastures and safer passage, he was offered a Dmitry Bivol fight. He turned it down. I don't give a fuck what his rationale was, what his reasoning was, because his reasoning seemed very obvious to me. He was putting distance then between himself and the good fighters at 175. He went to Boxer, and he did little more there than a Dan Aziz fight. A domestic-level fighter in Dan Aziz. I think that was the biggest fight that he had under the Boxer banner. The fight with Callum Smith doesn't count because Turkey paid for that, not Boxer. Do you remember what he said upon leaving Matchroom? He was afraid that enough people weren't able to see his fights fighting on an app. So he goes to Boxer, who had just inked a deal with Sky Sports, and what did he actually do at Boxer? What did he do at Boxer that would have garnered any more attention than what he was already doing on DAZN? Nothing. Didn't do nothing. He didn't do a goddamn thing. Just to end up leaving Boxer to go to Queensbury, which brought him back to DAZN. Brought him back to the app that he was afraid nobody would be able to find and nobody would be able to watch him. Joshua's got a piss poor resume. For an Olympian, he does. I understand that the light heavyweight division sometimes seems top heavy, that between Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, they put a lot of distance between themselves and everybody else, Joshua Buatsi included, that in some ways, it's a top-heavy division. But that's no excuse for Joshua Buatsi's piss-poor resume, because there were other guys he could have fought. Should have fought by now. Callum Johnson, Felix Valera, Sullivan Barrera, Eleider Alvarez, Joe Smith. Joshua Buatsi has actually been around for a long enough while now that his resume, given his amateur background, should look a lot better. So that if it doesn't, that's deliberate. That's by design. I remember 4 years ago, he was supposed to fight Maxim Vlasov. Same Maxim Vlasov that gave Joe Smith Jr. fits. Joshua Buatsi was supposed to fight him. The story was that he pulled out injured, suffered some kind of injury. I didn't believe that shit then. I don't believe that shit now.
4 years ago.
4 years later, his resume doesn't look any better than it did before. I never believed he was injured. I believed him and his team identified that fight as a dangerous fight and decided to withdraw. And the story that time has told is that Joshua Buatsi is not an ambitious fighter in spite of his amateur background, not inside or outside of the ring, in terms of what decisions are made on his behalf or what decisions he makes on the night. Yesterday, he looked one pace.
Robotic.
He don't fight with a sense of urgency, Joshua Buatsi. He's got a halfway decent jab, decent backhand, good straight punches, but really not much else. You don't get a whole lot out of this guy.
Not a whole lot of improvisation and adaptability to the man inside the ring in real time.
Not a lot.
Not much entertainment value in a Joshua Buatsi fight.
Not a lot.
As far as I'm concerned, he got a gift yesterday. He got a gift over Zach Parker. Zach Parker should have had his hand raised yesterday. And if you need a gift decision over Zach Parker. Remember, Zach Parker moved up from 168 up to 175. If that's too much for you, a guy like that, if that assignment...
Well, you can fucking forget about ever beating a better beaver or a beevil.
Forget it.
Liam Cameron fought on the same card as Joshua Buatsi yesterday. I got the distinct impression, based on the decision that Liam was given and the decision that Joshua Buatsi was given, that that's the fight that George and Frankie are going to put together next. Joshua Buatsi versus Liam Cameron in the interim.
In the meantime, while they wait for something bigger to come along, I expect to see Buatsi versus Cameron at some point in the first or the second quarter of next year.
Huh? Yeah, look, I'll be tuning in, and of course, it's my division, you know, so I'll definitely be tuning in and watching it. And Yarde being from England, we've got the same promoter. Wishing him all the best. If he gets the win, it's good. We can crack it on.
Story now is he's going to keep a close eye on the winner of Benavidez versus Yarde. In truth, I would pick either man to beat Joshua Buatsi at this point. If David Benavidez wins and beats Anthony Yarde, and he were to fight Joshua Buatsi after that, he would beat Joshua Buatsi for the same reason that Callum Smith beat Joshua Buatsi. He beat him from the inside out because Joshua Buatsi, in close quarters...
He's not busy enough.
Joshua Buatsi's best punches are his straight punches. That's the jab, that's the right hand, that's the right cross. But within close quarters, he's actually a lot more vulnerable, and we saw that in the Smith fight. We would see it again in a Benavidez fight if he were to fight David Benavidez.
David Benavidez would outwork him. At minimum, David Benavidez would outwork him if it were Anthony.
If Anthony were to beat David Benavidez and fight Joshua Buatsi after that, fight with Anthony Yarde is a bit more winnable than a Joshua Buatsi fight. Say a bit, marginally, because in a situation where Anthony Yarde beats the likes of David Benavidez, I think a lot of people would favor Anthony to then beat Joshua Buatsi.
Joshua Buatsi has not shown any ability whatsoever to compete at that level, the world level, to date. I think that his best win is a win over Ricard Palatniks. I won't even say Zach Parker, because I think he got a gift over Zach Parker.
What's working for him in a Yarde fight, if he were to encounter Anthony Yarde, well, Anthony did lose to Lyndon Arthur in their first fight. And in their first fight, Lyndon Arthur did little more than move and jab. Move and stick the jab out there. Joshua Buatsi could fight a similar fight.
Theoretically, could.
Using Lyndon Arthur as an example. But, if you are going to use Lyndon Arthur as an example, don't forget, he fought Anthony 3 times. And of the 3, he only won the first one. The last 2 times, Anthony beat him. So on that predication, Anthony could theoretically beat Joshua Buatsi. Anthony has shown more ability to compete at world level in defeat than Joshua Buatsi has shown in victory. Joshua Buatsi is running out of safe spaces, safe places to hide in the light heavyweight division. He's already been there and done that with Craig Spider Richards. He fought Zach Parker yesterday. I anticipate he may fight Liam Cameron.
But then after that, Where's he gonna go?
Over to David Benavidez and Anthony Yarde as David dismisses trainer's claim that he's overlooking Anthony. David Benavidez realizes just how dangerous Anthony Yarde will be when they square off later on this month. The unbeaten WBC light heavyweight champion has paid close attention to the dangerous English contender for several years. Benavidez is well aware, therefore, that he can't afford to underestimate an opponent that could sabotage the legacy-strengthening fights he wants after defeating Yarde in the 12-round main event of Ring 4. Night of the Champions.
Now, what he's addressing are some recent comments from Tunde Ajayi, Anthony's longtime trainer, that David is overlooking Anthony. Though if Yarde and his trainer, Tunde, truly believe Benavidez is overlooking him, the heavily favored Benavidez assured them that Yarde will encounter a harsh reality come fight night. They can say whatever they want, but they're not seeing how I'm training, Benavidez told The Ring. If anything, this has been the hardest I've trained. They've probably said that because I'm mentioning Dimitri Bivol, I'm mentioning Zurdo Ramirez, but at the end of the day, I know what's at stake.
I know he's a great fighter, Benavidez said. I've been watching him for a long time. I knew a fight with Anthony Yarde was going to manifest itself a long time ago, so they can think whatever they want. You know what I mean? They can say, I'm overlooking him, but at the end of the day, the type of work I'm putting in says something way different. Ajayi informed The Ring this month that he sensed Benavidez is underestimating what Ajayi promised will be the fight of his life. I just think whenever somebody is already talking about another fight in the future, then they are overlooking the one that's in front of them, Ajayi said. So yeah, keep overlooking us. He's talking about Dimitri Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, and I'm like, are you having a laugh, mate? Do you think we are coming here to mess about? We are coming here to fight, and David Benavidez is going to be in the fight of his life. Benavidez is currently a 10-1 favorite over Anthony Yarde according to DraftKings.
So if the indictment is that David Benavidez is overlooking Anthony, it would seem that DraftKings are doing that as well, the gamblers.
But you have to give Anthony Yarde a lot of credit because it's not the first time he walked into a world title situation that he wasn't favored to win. So far, he wasn't favored to beat Sergey. He wasn't favored to beat Artur. Currently, he's not favored to beat David, but he hasn't shied away from a challenge.
1, 2, 3 times the underdog. The first 2 times didn't work out, but maybe the third time's the charm. Maybe he'll upset the apple cart. The thing about upsets is, if people could see them coming, then they wouldn't be upsets.
And upsets do happen, don't they? I am intrigued by this fight.